Hey everyone, my name is Busala and welcome back to the Traveler's Lounge, where your journey is a story to share. This channel is dedicated towards exploring different cultures, educating individuals as they navigate life abroad. So sit back, relax, enjoy. Don't forget to give this video a like, subscribe if you haven't already to continue to receive amazing content. Let's get into the video. Welcome everyone to the Traveler's Lounge. This episode is a fun one. It's one that I'm excited for. It is frequently asked questions as an African in a foreign land. Notice I did not say as a Nigerian in a foreign land. I said as an African in a foreign land because that is basically how, for the most part, we are grouped as the continent Africa instead of like the different nations that Africa consists of. Frequently asked questions I've gotten from my colleagues at work, at school, people that I've encountered, telling them that I'm not from the US. And I'm sure other people can relate to these questions. And so this episode will be sharing the questions from a fun side, but also from an educational standpoint to debunk some myths that people have about the continent Africa. Yes, it's a continent, not a country. The continent Africa and just life abroad than what they're used to in their home country. Okay, I'll be looking at my notes here. So the first question I get, this is not the most popular question, but the first question I get is, do you have Wi-Fi? Do you have Wi-Fi? And that question is kind of strange because if you think about it, even in the US, it's not everywhere that for sure has 100% Wi-Fi. You can go to very remote places in the countryside and it's hard to get any kind of bar connection, or you can go to deserts and it's hard to get any kind of internet connectivity. But we are asked, do we have Wi-Fi? Yes, there is Wi-Fi. We do have Wi-Fi, although it's not as high speed, high tech as in the United States or in first world countries. We do have Wi-Fi and we do have a way of communicating to one another, which is another thing that I usually get is, how do you talk to your parents? How do you talk to family abroad? Through phone? Through phone conversations? Yes. There is FaceTime if the other individual has an iPhone. There's also something called WhatsApp. It's an app that you use to connect people from different nations around the world. And WhatsApp has a video call feature as well as a voice call feature. So yes, we talk via phone, we text, we call, everything like that. Another question, which this question is popular, very popular. It's, do you live in huts? Do you live in huts? Yes. Do I live in huts? I've only seen a hut once, or should I say twice? Twice. Let me give it a buffer and say twice. And that was when I was in Uganda, and it was just because I was going to a remote place. We had like a school trip, school excursion, and we're going to a remote place just to like, you know, I think for geography, social studies or something like that. And that's how I came across huts. But we do not live in huts. Depending on the country that you are in the continent of Africa, some countries are really like high infrastructure buildings, which will lead to the next question that people ask in relation to the hut is that, is it a jungle, all of that kind of stuff. Like, do you live around animals? Do you live around bears, lions, elephants? The only time I see a bear, well, I've actually never seen a bear. Fun fact, yes, I've never seen a bear. But the only time I saw a lion or an elephant was at the zoo. Not in my backyard. Was at the zoo, not in my backyard, okay? So I was going to give the striking differences between certain countries in Africa. So certain countries in Africa, based on how developed they are or based on their land markings, they are mostly infrastructure based. So it's mostly like high-rise buildings, mostly like you barely see any plants, trees around. So I'm talking about Nigeria, for example. It's difficult to see a tree around. It's mostly buildings because of the hustle and bustle of Lagos. Versus if you go to somewhere like maybe Uganda, it will be mostly greenery because that's the country is known for its like rich vegetation and it's rich like greenery and everything. So you will see a lot of trees around, a lot of green vegetation, grasses, all of that good stuff. Same thing with Kenya, but also it doesn't mean that like there aren't high-rise buildings in that country. It's just based on like things like climate, like okay, what is the weather like in that country, what can grow and what cannot grow. Because of the weather in places like Uganda and Kenya, it is convenient for trees and all that greenery to grow and to continue to flourish in a nation like that. Whereas in somewhere like Nigeria, which is like pretty dry, even if the trees and all of that grow, it's only trees that are adapted to dry climates. That I can only speak from those two countries because those are the countries that I have lived and I've been to. But I'm sure even other people in different African countries or other people who have visited different African countries can speak of the same thing as well. So there are buildings there, high-rise buildings. We don't have lions or elephants in our backyard, like I've heard so many times. Depending on where you are, like I said, there, even as it is in the US, there is the city and the countryside. Obviously in the countryside it's more rural, it's more rural, it's less developed, so you wouldn't see as much like buildings and things like that. Maybe some people would prefer to live in huts. So people actually like that life, that village country lifestyle of living in a hut, of living in something really small and tiny. But it would surprise you. It will surprise you to know that African countries actually have like really big houses, really big houses. That's what we pride ourselves in, is building really big family houses with like the golden chairs and everything.